until today in Abidjan, organized by the Higher Council of Mosques, Imams, and Islamic Affairs and the Muhammad Foundation of African Ulama. And to tell us more, we are joined by none other than Ebrahim Tembisa Fakude, who is present at this conference as a delegate, and he's also a senior fellow Africa Asia Dialogue and unpacking what is taking place at the conference. Brother Ebrahim, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Jumma Mubarak and welcome. Brother Ebrahim, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I think, Brother Ebrahim, you are muted. If you could possibly unmute your mic, and we will be able to hear you. We're going to try and get hold of Ebrahim Tembisa Fakude again. And
Assalamu alaikum. I'm here.
There we go. Wa alaikum salam.
I'm sorry. I should know better about these things by now, but sometimes you you forget all of the small little buttons. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Yes, Jazakallah khairan so much for joining us now. This is quite an interesting event and initiative that is taking place, and I see it is being hosted by or organized by the Higher Council of Mosques, Imams, Islamic Affairs, and also the Muhammad VI Foundation of African Ulama. Now, before we get to the conference itself, just a bit about this Muhammad VI Foundation of African Ulama. Can you tell us a bit more?
Well, they have branches throughout Africa, and they've got an office in South Africa as well. And the purpose, of course, is to try and promote peace, cooperation, not only amongst different faiths in the world, but also to introduce new ways of thinking and to how to go about dealing with the challenges that we find ourselves, not only as Muslims, but also just globally. Challenges of extremism, challenges of climate change, all of these kind of challenges that are facing us as humanity, and how to go about tackling them as a whole.
Yes. Now, this is quite interesting, and very interesting development when we're looking at African ulama working together in a conference of this sort. And also we'll talk about the interfaith dialogue that is taking place and what some of the key issues are. But just looking at this cooperation, Ebrahim, between the African ulama, it is absolutely important. Perhaps, in South Africa, we may not be exposed too much to it, but this cooperation is vital for this continent.
Indeed. In fact, we also have Jews in this conference, which is also very interesting. So there are three major religions represented here, and all of them are trying to find common ground in terms of how to go about tackling, issues of family and the school, and all other things that are actually impacting Muslims around the world, including religions, communication, and preaching, because these are the things that, or these are the aspects of our religions, all of us, that have potential sometimes of radicalizing our people, how we speak. And most of the time we speak about each other because we don't necessarily know each other. But these kind of platforms, outside the formalities as well, you get a chance, for example, to share a meal with someone from a different faith, and you get a chance to speak about. So the tensions are to an extent reduced, because there are a lot of lighter moments, particularly during break time and dinner time, etc. People are really getting to know each other. I had a chance yesterday, for example, of taking pictures with some of the African Jews, black Jews in this country, and it was really fascinating. We had brief chat. No, of course, it's not as smooth as it was supposed to be, because we speak in different languages, the Francophone country, Ivory Coast. But we did try to exchange certain ideas, and we talk about how we can help the world at the moment as it continues to face its difficult challenges, including what we woke up to yesterday, which was the bombing and attack of Ukraine by Vladimir Putin.
Exactly. And also, I think Africa being a key area of focus for many reasons, and one of them being resources, the scramble for resources. The entire world has got some interest or has a footprint on the African continent. And together with that, it does present other issues, other challenges. And so Africa can be fertile ground for problems as well because of certain vested interests. And it's important for the continent because we know a large part of the continent is Muslim, but it's important for the continent to have the type of dialogue with people of other faiths, because we've seen conflicts on the African continent as well, where you have one faith against the other. We've seen what has happened in Nigeria. We see what has happened in some of the other countries as well. So this is absolutely important, and it is initiatives like these, Ebrahim, that go a long way in addressing some of these issues.
Very, very important point. Africa has become a fertile ground for various people competing for various things, particularly business and politics. And they tend to use people of faith in pushing their agendas in Africa. And those are the trappings that I think Africans are realizing that are dividing factors. So what you have, for example, here, you have people talking, because you can't really exclude politics in such discussions, because it is politics that has led a situation that we find ourselves where people are divided in terms of, simple issues that will ordinarily garner support, but people are divided because of those that want to exploit minerals and all the deposits that are underground in many countries in Africa using religion. So the religious leaders are aware of those kind of trappings, and it's good that, as I've said, that closeness that's being established at the moment, instead of us having conferences all the time and trying to sort out problems that could be sorted out over the telephone call. And these kind of functions are now facilitating that continual discussion and communication within various leaders in Africa. And also there is a potential of forming working committees, ongoing working committees. Again, not to have to wait for big conferences to talk about problems, but these committees can continue working and ensuring that the people of faith address the challenges, social, political, and economic challenges that these communities face, united and having an understanding that the goal number one is to facilitate development within our communities, particularly in Africa. So it's a great platform, and it will, of course, spill over into other spheres of society, as we've just said, because we have a lot of people who come to Africa to exploit the available resources, and they use all kind of means, including divisive strategies for them to do so. So it's important to have this kind of conference because it highlights those kind of things, even though, of course, we're not going deeper into politics, but it highlights the importance of people of faith constantly being aware of what's going on and united in dealing with these socio-economic and political challenges.
Yes, and also the whole question of surrounding extremism, because I'm sure that has featured very, very strongly in the conference that started on the 23rd. And these are challenges that we are faced with on the continent. And an example, a clear example of extremism is, we know what's happening out in Cabo Delgado, out in the Mozambique region, in northern Mozambique. So, these are issues that have arisen. These are issues that need to be addressed. And just looking at some of the standout issues that stick out in your mind in terms of what has been coming out of the conference so far.
Well, we have an interesting one coming up. It's called Public Authorities and Religious Stakeholders as they face up to phenomenon of radicalization and violent religious extremism. So that that happened yesterday. It was the last theme yesterday, and it was a really fascinating theme because they brought in quite experienced academics to come and deal with this issue. So the issue of extremism is very important in Africa. But again, you need to be very careful on how you go about dealing with it, because the low-hanging strategy in dealing with such has been using force. But I think it's important that we go back to the masjid, to the churches and to the synagogues to begin to talk to our people about coexistence and tolerance, by the way, and just to re-educate societies about about our various religions and their approach towards others and approach towards difference and tolerance, because that's the whole point. The reason why people tend to react the way they do and end up being radical and violent towards others is because of that lack of understanding that other people have got opinions. And we need to draw examples from the Sunnah and the Sirah of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam on how he dealt with differences and how people in all of these places in the Middle East, particularly Makkah and Medina, when Islam started, there was a semblance of harmony and understanding that other people had different religions, etc. Although, of course, there were now and then conflicts, but there was a way of going about dealing with those conflicts. And I think we need to resuscitate that culture of tolerance and the ability for us to live together. We know, for example, that in many African countries, we have Jewish people coming back, particularly in countries like Morocco and Yemen and others, notwithstanding what's been happening there. But people are coming back because it's been their homes. We have a lot of Arab Jews who migrated for various reasons, including political reasons, who are now coming back to their homes. We still have Jews, for example, in Morocco, in Iraq, and some parts of Iran. And how do we go about dealing with those kind of situations in terms of encouraging tolerance and encouraging coexistence and ensuring that we join hands in ensuring that we work for those that are downtrodden and we provide development, particularly economic development within those societies, because this perpetual war is not going to help those that continue to suffer. So we need to start thinking about other ways of encouraging coexistence. And one of the ways of encouraging coexistence is to ensure that people have opportunities to succeed and have better lives, and they can live and take their kids to school and provide health care to their children and families. So these are the things that I think the religious leaders are beginning to realize, that these are the low-hanging methods that can bring us together, and we can encourage and one day realize successful societies where everybody thrives.
Well, certainly. And also just a thought in terms of taking this initiative to another level in terms of engaging with the political leadership on the continent, because I think this is extremely important. This is relevant, that the political leadership recognizes initiatives like these, because at the end of the day, it all boils down to politics as well.
Yeah, well, the other thing is we take it for granted as South Africans, by the way, that for us this is like a second nature. When we were having a discussion here, these people, for some of these people, these are projects. And I was explaining to them that if you go to South Africa, you'll find a Jew sitting across the other person at Starbucks drinking coffee, and there's no big deal. Kids go to school together. We have so many platforms in South Africa that like automatically bring us together. And I was just giving them an example of South Africa, of our rainbow nation, that we don't really have these kind of problems. Now and then, of course, we do. But you have people walking in malls and eating together in many places. They go to all of these different places. And it was, although it was not it was not automatic. Of course, there were a lot of efforts that went into this, including issues of non-racialism and multiculturalism and us understanding each other. But we also have a platform that continues to encourage this kind of coexistence in South Africa. We've got South African Human Rights Commission, and gender commissions and all of these commissions. And what these commissions are there for is to guard against violations in these respective spheres of our society. And I was saying to them that it's important that we go after these conferences, we go and implement systems, we put up infrastructure, social infrastructure that will ensure that these kind of attempts are encouraged and they continue to happen. In South Africa, we have a discussion about every single thing, and that's very important. And we never fight. Radio, for example, plays an extremely important role in terms of conscientizing people about their social responsibilities, and our kids, to a large extent, are continually encouraged to integrate. We've got sports event where kids from different parts of society come together and they play together. And these things do not exist in these countries. These countries operate in silos. You have religious groupings that are not cross-pollinating, for lack of a better term, in terms of getting to know what the others are doing. They're all operating within their own groupings and hardly meet with each other. But in South Africa, it's different. And I think that's very, very important. I mean, we have a lot of these private universities, for example, in many African countries, and private universities are sponsored by religious organizations, which therefore exclude students who come from other religious groups. In South Africa, all our universities are multicultural. All our universities accept that South Africa come from different backgrounds. We've got student organizations at universities, again, encourage students from different backgrounds to fight for common causes within universities. We've got religious bodies within universities, whether it's Muslim associations or Jewish or Christian organizations. But all of them, at the end of the day, they meet and they come up with ways of how to push forward the common objectives and common challenges that they face. Fees Must Fall, for example, was one of that, where you had Christian, Muslims, and Jews together fighting for their rights to free and good education. So these things are very important. You can't just achieve this harmony within religious groupings if we don't put in place these grassroots platforms.
Well, Jazakallah khair so much for that, Ibrahim. Very, very interesting. And I'm sure, once these projects get underway and also as a follow-up to this conference, there's just so much that can actually come out of it. But we thank you. We do appreciate you taking time out, talking to us this morning. We wish you all the best, inshallah. And inshallah, we wish you a safe return back home. Jazakallah for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Shukran.
Ebrahim Fakude joining us out of Abidjan this morning, and we're going to go for a break. We come back, we'll be joined by Penny Appeal, South Africa's Shinas Parak.